And this is a Fox News alert. The AP is accusing the Obama administration of spying on its reporters. Now, according to the AP, the Obama Justice Department secretly seized the telephone records of an unknown number of its employees. Now, executives from the news organization sent a letter to Attorney General Eric Holder today protesting this invasion of privacy, arguing it could, quote, disclose information about the AP's activities and operations that the government has no conceivable right to know. Now, tonight, we have assembled an all-star lineup to discuss these spying allegations, Benghazi, and, of course, the IRS's enemies list. Over the course of the next hour, you'll hear from the great one, Mark Levin, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, and the former Vice President of the United States, Dick Cheney. But we begin with an update on the explosive accusations facing the IRS. And as we reported on Friday, the agency is accused of targeting conservative political groups during the 2012 election cycle. However, tonight, Fox News can confirm that the additional scrutiny went well beyond simply harassing organizations with the words Tea Party or Patriot in their title. We're also learning tonight that the IRS guidelines, including groups that focused on government spending, debt, taxes, entities interested in making, quote, America a better place to live, and even those critical of how this country is run. And for the very first time, the president was asked about these downright un-American, taxpayer-funded witch hunts, and not surprisingly, he immediately declared his innocence. Watch this.
I first learned about it from the same news reports that I think most people learned about this. I think it was on Friday. You know, this is pretty straightforward. If, in fact, IRS personnel engaged in the kind of practices that have been reported on and were intentionally targeting conservative groups, then that's outrageous, and there's no place for it. You know, they have to be held fully accountable.
Now, while the president claims he only found out about this late last week, members of his own administration were reportedly alerted that conservative groups were being targeted nearly 2 years ago. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, an upcoming report from the Treasury Department's Inspector General will reveal a top IRS lawyer named Lois Lerner was informed about this practice in June of 2011. However, almost a year later, after Lerner was briefed, her boss, the commissioner of the IRS, appeared before lawmakers and Congress and denied that this was taking place. Watch this.
Can you give us assurances that the IRS is not targeting particular groups based on political leanings?
First, let me start by saying yes, I can give you assurances. As you know, we pride ourselves on being a non-political, nonpartisan organization. And so there's absolutely no targeting. This is the kind of back and forth that happens when people apply for 501c4 status.
All right, joining me now with reaction, somebody who has been working behind the scenes for years to expose this abuse of power by the IRS and the Obama administration. Nationally syndicated radio talk show host, we call him the Great One, Mark Levin. We dragged him out of his bunker tonight. Great One, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Sean.
All right, that comment that we just played by the head of the IRS denying that this was taking place, even though they knew about it a year prior, that was 1 day later. You, through your organization, the Landmark Legal Foundation, filed this report that really got this ball rolling with the Inspector General's office. So the timing of this was very key. Why don't you walk us through how this all got started?
Well, first of all, I just heard you play the clip of the president say, if this is true. Did he not hear his own IRS official on Friday confess and apologize to the facts, the limited amount of facts that are on the table? Of course it's true. The IRS just said it's true that they've been targeting the Tea Party and other conservative groups. That's number one. Number two, I was not familiar with that testimony when we filed our complaint with the Inspector General at the Treasury Department and the Tax Administration Division. We were approached on March 5th of last year. The person didn't want their name to come out, and so that made it a little difficult. We had the information at the time, including this horrific letter with threats of perjury and all these outrageous questions on it from the IRS to one of the tax organizations. So it took us about 2 weeks to be able to persuade the individual to allow us to go forward. I spoke to a number of my former colleagues from the tax division of the Justice Department. As you know, I worked at the Justice Department to figure out the best way to approach this. And so we decided at Landmark Legal Foundation, it wasn't so much representing individual groups as putting an end to this and investigating the Internal Revenue Service. That's why we went to the Treasury Department Inspector General. And Jay Sekulow and his group have done a terrific job representing the individual tax groups. But what troubles me the most about this, Sean, well, not the most, but one of the issues that troubles me is the passivity and timidity of Congress. The fact is, a year ago, Congress should have been calling witnesses before their committees, should have placed them under oath, should have been pursuing possible perjury claims, and should have gotten to the bottom of this before the election cycle ran out. Why, for the life of me, these committee chairmen now are beating their chests and they're talking about all the hearings they're going to conduct. Why, for the life of me, they didn't do this a year ago is very troubling. And I'm going to tell you why, in my humble opinion. Because it involved the Tea Party. And the Republican Party is no great cheerleader for the Tea Party and other conservative groups. And so they were relatively dismissive. They fired off a few letters, they asked a few questions, but they didn't really conduct an aggressive, focused investigation to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, but shouldn't they have been, Mark? I mean, we have constitutionally protected rights to freedom of speech, freedom of association. Your letter went into great detail. The questions that they were asking these groups, which now we have now discovered were based on political motivation. This sounds to me like an enemies list. So why didn't they do their job? Because this, like Benghazi, we should have gotten to the bottom of before the election. I think that's a good point.
It was an enemies list, but it only had one enemy on it, conservatives, and specifically Tea Party. Chairman Camp, I believe his name is, of the House Ways and Means Committee, put out a statement today about this hearing they're going to have on Friday. And it's very genetic, very bureaucratic. They're going to look into politically partisan activities of the IRS. This isn't about politically partisan activities by the IRS. This is about an attack on the Tea Party and the conservative movement. MoveOn.org wasn't on there. Media Matters wasn't on there. The words progressive weren't used or liberal. It was Tea Party, Patriot, Constitution, We the People. Any word or collection of words that would trigger attacks on conservatives and conservative groups. So what they need to be investigating is exactly what the IRS just confessed to, which is targeting conservatives and Tea Party groups, not this generic watered down, we're going to see if the IRS was partisan. I can answer that under oath. Yes, they were partisan. Now find out exactly what they did.
Well, I think all good points that you're making here. Now, the question is, they tried to dismiss this. Let me backtrack. If you look at Benghazi, Mark, and Jay Carney, who's now basically a paid liar for the White House, there are only stylistic differences in the talking points. There weren't stylistic differences. It was a dramatic 180 shift from the truth to a lie that they built. In this particular case, you know, now we have the IRS out there. They're targeting conservative groups, and they're trying to say that these are low-level underlings. Is that going to fly? And the president and also Jay Carney saying, well, this is an independent organization. Do you buy that?
Well, I think we should not pay attention to what Carney and Obama say because they're utterly, well, I won't say it on your show, but they lie all the time. And the fact of the matter is, when it comes to the IRS information, I don't know how on the one hand they say we don't know what took place, and on the other hand they say, well, we had nothing to do with it. It doesn't matter what they say. What the committees in Congress now need to do is they have an Article I responsibility, is to bring in the revenue agents from Cincinnati and other places, as well as the most senior officials at the IRS, work it top down, bottom up, get the information under oath in public hearings, and the focus needs to be on what the IRS has already confessed to and see if it broadens out from there.
All right, we're going to take
I don't think the Democrats are going to be that helpful. We'll see.
I tend to doubt it. Well, now, when we come back, I want to ask you about the AP and the press and the phone records that they've been looking into for months. We'll have more with the great one, Mark Levin, after the break. And still ahead tonight.